There you go. Sarah, if you would be able to man the waiting room, that would be fab, and then we'll start.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. So a huge welcome to you all. So tonight's webinar, because we've held two, tonight's is the Welcome to the Appropriate Body service. So this is for every school who are with us for Appropriate Body. You may also be with us for the ECF, and that's fine to be here. The messages we'll share are completely different, and the service that we provide for AB, Appropriate Body, is totally different. But if you are here thinking, oh, my Appropriate Body is someone else, but we're with you for the ECF, then I really don't mind you leaving and popping a goodbye in the chat. That's no problem at all. But tonight is our Appropriate Body. So a huge welcome from me. I'm Zoe Thompson, the Director of Northern Lights Teaching School Hub, but importantly part of the Appropriate Body team here at the Hub. And I'm joined tonight by other members of our team. And if you want to give a wave, I know Katie can't because she doesn't have a camera on, but Sarah Hardy has joined us in our team. Katie Hill is in our AB team. And we're also joined by both Nicola and Keely from our admin team at the Teaching School Hub. So names and faces you'll see throughout the year, or 2 years if you're just starting in induction this year. So everyone is welcome tonight, whether you're an induction tutor, a mentor, an ECT. This is for you, a head teacher, anyone in school who's going to have a part to play in induction. And the purpose of tonight is really to give you a bit of an introduction to our team, talk to you a little bit about our Teaching School Hub and where the ECF fits into what we do as a hub, give you a brief introduction on induction, because I imagine you know a lot now. You might have been present at last week's webinar, or you might have heard from your own delivery partner what the ECF's all around. And then we look at the Appropriate Body service. We'll go through key expectations for this year, key responsibilities and roles for you as a school, for us as Appropriate Body, and where you'll get support throughout the year. We'll tell you a little bit about an ECT fair coming up, which is fab for your ECTs, and there'll be some time at the end for any questions and answers. But equally, as we go through, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. If I'm talking or Sarah's talking, one of us will have a look and we'll try and answer them, because they may be really helpful to someone else on the call as well. So if you don't know us already, some of you work with us already, some of you are brand new to working with Northern Lights. We are Sunderland, Gateshead and South Tyneside Teaching School Hub. It doesn't mean we only work with schools in that specific region, and we do work with over 200 schools at the moment, including lots of schools out of Hub region. You may already know Teaching School Hub remit, that it's that professional development golden thread, right from ITT all the way through to executive leadership. So the ECF is one part that we deliver, the Appropriate Body is one part that we serve and we have as part of the remit, but then we deliver MPQs, we deliver other CPD, we work with trusts and MATs and individual schools, and it's all about that really high quality CPD opportunities for all teachers and leaders right across the North East. Want to say a huge hello and thank you for joining us if you are new to working with the Hub, and it'll be great to build that relationship as we move through this year.
So as you can see here, we've got a visual that if you were on the meeting last week, you will have seen it before, but it may be something that you've come across in your own research into the role in the new ECF. But as Zoe said, it just highlights those golden threads of training that the DFE have initialised this year. So basically the circled area there, that's the part that we're working on when we're talking about the ECF and appropriate body work.
So some key changes from the old NQT to the new ECT is just really important to highlight as in a sense of appropriate body rather than ECF. So as induction tutors, if you're on the call, alongside the head teacher, you will make sure that ECTs and mentors have their entitled time out of class as a reduced timetable to complete their training. And it's us as appropriate body that must ensure that that timetable time is in place. So as you can see from the table, pre-2021, pre-September 2021, an NQT would have 10% off timetable for 1 year. Whereas if you're a school now with ECTs, you will know that in year 1, they get 10% off. And then in year 2, they get 5%. So you might be a school on the call tonight who are supporting ECTs in their 2nd year. And it's really important that they are still given that 5% off timetable to complete their self-study. Another big change is the role of the mentor. And we'll talk a little bit tonight of the difference between the induction tutor and the mentor, because this is a much more defined role in the new framework. And that mentor who you decide as head teacher and induction tutor to do that role also must have that protected time off timetable. So another real key change. The other thing we'll talk about tonight is that role of the appropriate body and the change for the checking of the statutory entitlements. So we'll talk about the progress reviews, the assessments, and the expectations of you as a school and what's changed from pre-ECF.
So every school who has employed an ECT has to do the following 2 things, which some of you may have already done this, so I'll just briefly go over it. But you need to appoint an appropriate body. So if you're on this call, I'm assuming that you're with us for that role. And you also need to provide an ECF-based training. So again, some people on the call might be with us for that as well, or you may be with a different provider. But if you're listening to me now and you're thinking, okay, I've sorted my appropriate body, but actually I'm not sure who my ECF-based training provider is, you need to have a look into that, but you can also get in touch with us and we'll see if we can support you with that.
Thank you. So there's multiple routes that schools can choose. The majority of schools select that fully funded provider-led route, and that's what the DfE kind of advise schools to go down. Now, for some schools, that's not an option, so they have to look at the kind of delivering your own programme route, so using the accredited materials and delivering it themselves. A very small minority of schools across the country have chosen to actually design and deliver their own ECF programme, but it's still there as an option. And if you're a school that is struggling to decide between or wants to move between, as an appropriate body, we can support you with looking at the difference between all 3 and what kind of effect it would have on your school, what you would gain from it, what might be more difficult, what support you may need, and we can look at all 3. The majority of schools, as I say, do select that DfE provider-led route, and that is through a delivery partner such as ourselves as Northern Lights and others across the region. And that is where you have funding put into your school to release mentors, to release ECTs. All of the training is online for you to access, and you get that face-to-face delivery, which is external to your school delivery too. Again, if you're on the call and you think I might need a little bit more help with that, we're not happy with who we're with, we want to move, then just please give us a call or pop it in the chat and we'll speak to you after tonight.
Okay, so again, there's actions that schools need to take. So it's important that you have done each of these steps. So the first one is obviously register for the ECF. And at Northern Lights Teaching School Hub, we follow with the Education Development Trust, so they're our lead provider. The second thing you need to do is register with your appropriate body, as I've already said, that is us as you're on this call. The third thing is to go onto the DfE Managed Training for Early Career Teachers Service and register your induction tutor and use a training provider funded by the DfE. So it's a portal where you need to put in all of that information. And then the final thing is, once you have all of your ECT details, you need to go back onto the DfE Managed Training for Early Teacher Career Service and put on all of the information, and that you would then be fully on board with Northern Lights Teaching Hub, and you would be with us for everything ready to start your induction, which has already started as it's September.
Thank you, Sarah. If there's any part of those steps that you think, oh, I don't know whether I've accessed that registration or that one's not something I've heard of recently, I'm not sure, please contact us. We know this is tricky. We know that there's lots of steps to go through. Once it's up and running, it's easier for schools to go on and just make amendments if mentors change, if induction tutors change. It's just getting that initial registration. I imagine that you've all done all 4 steps at the moment and induction's begun, but if it hasn't, don't worry and we'll support you. Okay, so moving on now to the appropriate body service. As an appropriate body, and this is a hat that is very different to the ECF delivery of the training, we can support you, as I've said, to decide which route is best for you, but then we're there to support you with monitoring. So we must ensure that ECTs get their entitlements. But with that, it's ensuring that mentors have their entitlements to be able to do their role fully and to be able to support their ECT. We then support you to monitor the assessments that are made over the 2 years, because at the end of an ECT's 2 years, it's us as an appropriate body who make the final decision to whether we feel an ECT has met their teacher standards and can pass induction. With appropriate body and with induction, there's particular roles in your school, and I'm sure at this point you've already established these roles. You should have established and appointed an induction tutor. So that is somebody who a head teacher feels has the correct qualifications and skills, obviously qualification being QTS, skills and attributes to be able to assess an ECT against the teacher standards. The person who does this role will be the person who writes the progress reviews, who writes the final assessment in term 3 and the assessment in term 6, who will be the person going in and assessing through observation, through drop-in, through book scrutiny, that ECT against, as I said, the teacher standards and not the training programme. In addition to the induction tutor, a head teacher will appoint an ECT mentor in school. So this is the person who will work with the ECT each week or fortnightly in year 2, will deliver the programme to them, so we'll support them with their self-study, we'll deliver their training, will not assess against the teacher standards, will not assess against their ECF programme because it's not an assessment tool, but will be that critical friend, will be that coach, will be the person who they can go to, who they can drop into their lessons and kind of share their practice with, and really support them and build a relationship with them over the year or over the 2 years. Then you've got your ECT, who formerly was NQT, and as an ECT, they will be developing their knowledge over the 2 years to demonstrate that they're making progress. They're really mastering their kind of the ECF comments within their teacher standards. They've developed from their ITT right to meet their teacher standards at the end of the 2 years, and we know and beyond, because that's what every teacher continuously works towards and develops. And then there'll be the head teacher role, who will support that in that coordination of induction with the induction tutor and identify who that induction tutor might be. Now, in some schools, it is the same person. Their head teacher has decided to be the induction tutor, but that doesn't have to be, as long as they identify the correct person for the job.
Okay, so everything that Zoe's just gone through there, the information that that hubs work through is through following the guidance from the DFE. So what we've done is we've pulled some of the kind of main points of the role of the induction tutor and the mentors onto this slide here. But there's also a link, and when you get the slides, if you haven't seen this document, I'm sure most of you have. If you haven't, I would really I would say have a look at it. It's got lots of useful information in there, and should be really a go-to document to support you in your role. But one of the main things to really kind of point out is the point at the bottom there, where it says the roles of the induction tutor and mentor are different with differing responsibilities, and it's expected that the roles should be held by different individuals. So the guidance states that it works best when it is 2 separate people. There are some exceptional circumstances where if you're in a very, very small school and you don't have the members of staff to do that. However, it does work best when those 2 roles are split.
Thanks, Sarah. Just to know, each school it's very personal to them. So if you're sitting thinking, actually, I don't know whether I should be both roles, I'm a mentor, but I'm also an induction tutor, or equally you're a head teacher thinking, I'm not sure who to choose for those roles and want some advice, please contact us, because each school is very individual when it comes to choosing the right person. But it's just about noting that exceptional circumstance could be due to lack of experience or expertise of other staff within school, and therefore that it has to lie with one person because they're the only person to do that role. There's lots of different reasons, but as we said, it does work best if we follow the guidance that it is 2 different people. So they see one person going in as induction tutor and doing a formal observation based around the teacher standards, and then they see their mentor who is support them with their training programme. Just lost our little ticker, thank you. So at the end of last year, the DfE provided us with some guidance that they wanted us to share with all schools. And that was that it is really imperative that ECTs have that time off timetable, and this was their words, that they undertake their mentor training so mentors can carry out their role effectively. So you may have mentored, or your mentors may have mentored for many, many years, but this is mentor training really focused around the ECF. So it's ensuring that your mentors can access their training programs, whether it's their face-to-face sessions or any virtual sessions, and that their mentor sessions with their ECT is protected time during the school day. So as a school, the guidance is that you arrange your timetable, that the ECT's teaching is observed regularly. So that can be the induction tutor or another suitable person in school who does come into classrooms to observe, but the induction tutor must do at least 1 a term to be able to write that progress review and that assessment. You must complete your progress reviews, and we'll go on to those in a little while, and complete your formal assessments. So as your teaching school hub appropriate body, what we will be doing as part of that quality assurance process, as part of that support for you, we will be speaking with you at least twice in the year. Now, we are here to chat with you at any time, but the more formal arrangements will be through a light touch check-in and an in-depth check-in. So light touch will happen in this first term, so in autumn. And it will be virtual, and it will only be with the induction tutor. So what will happen in that meeting is we'll meet with the induction tutor. We will discuss each of the ECTs, how they're making progress, how they're settling in, check they're getting their entitlements, talk through how the mentoring process looks, and ask just a series of questions to build a picture about how things are looking within school. This will happen before you write your progress reviews, so it's an opportunity to share anything that needs to be shared at that point. We can support you in how to write your progress reviews or any kind of admin help that you might need with the reports, and answer any questions you might have. So it might be at that point where you start to flag, oh, there's a little bit of a concern already, we'll support you straight away. Or it might be just to report that everything's going really well. You don't have to prepare anything for that meeting. It's just about the induction tutor having a really informal chat with one of us from the team. We will then visit you as an in-depth check-in, and this will be a suitable time in either terms 2 or term 3. Okay, now during this meeting, this will be face-to-face, and it will be lovely for us to come into school and build that relationship and connection up with you, your ECT, your mentor within school. So one of the members of the appropriate body team will come in. We will chat with your ECT, chat with your mentor, chat with your induction tutor. If there's an opportunity to drop into an ECT's lesson, that would be fantastic. And we will work the day or the session, whether it be an hour, depending on how many ECTs you have, around you as a school. Now, to identify those suitable times, what will happen is induction tutors will receive an email from Nicola at the Teaching School Hub. That email will give you instructions of what we need you to do, and you will be given a link to book a slot. And when you get that link, if you go on there, it's a little bit like a first come, first serve basis for those slots. So you will have all the availability and you can select which time is more suitable for you in school. During the meeting, whether it's the virtual or the face-to-face session, we'll complete a note sheet and we'll share that with you as soon as it's written up. If there's anything you need changing, we'll do that together, and you will have a copy and we'll have a copy too. If anything's flagged where we need an ECT needs more support and you want us to support you with that, then we can do further check-ins, and we'll look to devise support plans and further monitoring with you as a school. Okay, I'll move on to progress reviews now. So if you're new to induction or new to the new framework for induction, you will know that rather than a formal assessment at the end of each term, we now have progress reviews in terms 1, 2, and then in terms 4 and 5 of year 2. On those progress reviews, they gradually increase in detail. So for example, in term 1, it's probably most helpful that we think about kind of the teacher's personal professional conduct, how well their relationships work and how well they're settling into school. In term 2, it's probably more helpful to consider, is the teacher going to require any more support at this point? And consider their progress across each of the standards at that point. Because when you move into term 3, when you write your first assessment, you want to collect the evidence that you've already started to collect over terms 1 and 2. There's then no surprises by the time you get to term 3 for the ECT, for us as appropriate body, because targets have been set, evidence is being collected, and everything's being shared with the ECT at each point. So when you go to write that term 3 assessment that we'll move on to, nothing's a shock unless something has changed quite quickly within that last term. In terms 4 and 5, if you're on the call and you've got ECT 2s, for teachers that have been consistently on track, so they've never dipped, they've never needed any additional support to get back on track, then those progress reviews can be quite light touch. They can focus on anything that's emerged to kind of derail their progress, but they can just be light touch information. For those ECTs who might have not been on track in year 1, then terms 4 and 5 are really important to provide the right targets, the right support, and the right evidence to prove that as an ECT, they are getting back on track to meet the teacher standards at the end of term 6, the end of the second year. So when the progress review is written, it's written by the induction tutor, who will sign it off and send it to the ECT via ECT Manager, and we'll show you what that system is in a second. Lots of you will already have access to that, but it's all done online. So it will be completed online, it gets sent to the ECT, and the ECT is prompted to make their comments and to sign it off to say they're happy with it. It then gets sent to us as an appropriate body, and we review every single progress review. So we'll look to see if it states that they're on track, and if they're not on track, and they are identified as not on track on that review, we'll contact you as a school and we'll support you with putting a support plan in place straight away. That support plan is supportive. It is to look at what you will do as a school to support that ECT. And if there's anything else you need that you feel you can't do as a school, we'll help you find that. And whether that's helping you provide that within our Teaching School Hub or another organisation, we'll support you with that bit. We'll meet ECT and it'll all be a very open approach to support. So we'll regularly check in. As you can see, part-time ECTs will still be expected to have progress reviews written for them. And a progress review at the end of every term will still be expected, even if they are part-time. ECT Manager will prompt you to fill in your progress review 7 days before the end of the term dates we've selected. Please go on and check the dates that it's due. It will send you reminders, but just so you know when you're looking at it coming up and when it's due. Schools all finish at different times, so it's really worth checking what dates are on that system, because we've had to go with a centralised date as the term dates on there. Okay, so assessments are quite similar to the assessments from the previous framework, but they only come in terms 3 and 6. And an ECT doesn't pass or fail their induction through their assessments until the end of year 2. So even at the end of year 1 in term 3, it's a formal assessment that the head teacher has to sign off, as well as the induction tutor. It will say whether they're making kind of standard progress towards meeting their teacher standards, or they're not on track, they're not making satisfactory progress, but they won't fail the first year. There are various reasons year one might be extended, but that's due to attendance. So it's really important that to note each progress review and assessment, you will identify any days that the ECT is not worked. And if that goes over 30 days in 1 year, that first year must be extended. We can talk again on a one-to-one basis if that happens, and we'll flag up any that we think actually an ECT's attendance is becoming a concern, and we'll speak to you about that. As we've said, evidence will be built all year, but this time in your term 3 and 6 assessment, it must be based around each teacher's standard, and you'll be prompted to make a comment about each of the standards. So it's really beneficial to keep that evidence log going throughout the year and throughout year 2, so that it's not a surprise when it gets to that end of term. These are due 14 days before the end of term, because this is a much longer assessment, and as an appropriate body service, we review them individually and provide comments for you. So that's due 2 weeks before. Again, all data on ECT Manager, which will show you where they are.
Okay, so all of you will have access to ECT Manager. If you don't think you do, or you're not sure how to access it, again, you can pop it in the chat and we can look into that for you. But we are going to show you what it looks like in just a moment, so it may jog your memory once you see visually what it looks like. But this here, so there's lots of information to support you when you are completing your assessments. But what we do have within ECT Manager, there's a resources tab, and within that you'll find a guidance document which looks just like this, and it gives you really clear guidance and support. So for those of you who've never done it before, or those who just haven't done it within the new framework, you might find this really useful to support you when you're writing your assessments at the end of the terms.
Thanks, Sarah. It also shows you in this document how to fill it in on ECT Manager. So it'll give you a step-by-step guide, and it also gives you a draft. So you can download the draft, you can handwrite it or scribble it or use it on Word, and I would really advise you do that first. Create a draft of your assessment on Word, so then you can just copy and paste that over to the online document. So if anything happened to your computer while you were filling it in, or if it didn't save for any reason, you've got that draft copy. It's equally useful to share that draft copy with your ECT before uploading it all onto ECT Manager. But as Sarah said, that guidance document will tell you step by step and provide you some comments regarding some really good practice comments for each of the teacher standards, some good examples of good evidence and various things. Okay, so every appropriate body service is different. Our remit is the same. We follow the same guidance, but what you may receive with us might be different from another appropriate body. So just to really quickly run through some of the things that we do. So we register you with the TRA, so that automatically happens when you are signed up with ECT Manager. We are that centralised point of contact for your school. We access and allow you to access the online system ECT Manager, which will show you what that looks like. It's really important to note this is different to your ECF training. We'll provide you regular updates, so we'll communicate with you via email or via webinars such as this, meetings, or our bulletin, which will come out at the end of every half term to give you an update of what's coming up next half term and an overview of what's happened this half term. We will always support you with advice. So whether it be something we can answer or we have a specific colleague with that knowledge who can support you, we'll support you that way. We do your QA checks, which we've been over. If you are a core induction school, so if you're following your own programme or one of the kind of school DIY programmes, then we support you with those fidelity checks that you need. Lots of support for ECTs if they're not on track, and we want to make sure they get back on track. So we'll do everything we can to support you as a school and ECTs to work out what it is that they need to get back on track and pass induction. We will, if an ECT raises concern, they've got a named contact. or if the school raises concern, then we'll point you in the right direction. And we're continuously developing guidance documents to help you, such as we've got draft support plans on there. We've obviously shared the guidance document. We've got an induction booklet, which outlines all the roles and responsibilities, and that will be on there too. If those documents are not showing in resources yet, Keely's on the call and I'm sure she'll make a note and share those, but we've got them on our system. So if you'd like them straight away, we can get them to you, but they will be on there shortly because they're ready and available. And we'll also provide you with additional CPD. So if there's any other opportunities we've got within our Teaching School Hub, we'll offer it to you as our appropriate body service and share all the information that you might need to sign up and get your ECTs or other teachers in your school the best professional development.
Okay, so this is ECT Manager. So if this is something that is completely new to you, I know Keely is chatting away to and replying to people in the chat. So if you haven't got access to this or you're not sure, just pop us a message in the chat and we will get to you. I think Keely is saying that if you don't have a login at all, and you know you don't, if you email our Teaching School Hub info account with your name, school and role, then we'll be able to set that up for you, no problem. So this is what the dashboard looks like, and this is where you will find the resources that I mentioned previously, and where you will upload all of your assessments and reviews. And as Zoe said, you'll be able to check on here the dates of when your reviews and assessments are due. Okay, so we do want to click on to the next slide.
Yeah, just before I click on, I think you've put it onto the next one, but it's on here where you will upload your ECTs and everything's just identified on the top. So it's making sure that those ECTs are on there. Yeah.
So once you have decided that you want to come with us for Appropriate Body, which is what you have done, you will let us know, which again, this is what you've already done, which is why you're on the call. The next point is that you will receive an email invite to ECT Manager to add induction tutor details. So that is the first point. So all you'll have done is put one person's details in there. Once that is done, we are notified, and then we can then set you up from our end. And you'll then receive a second email requesting that that induction tutor logs on and adds the head teacher and all ECT information. So that includes email addresses and details about the ECT, including their teacher reference number and things like that. After that, the head teacher then receives an invite to add an electronic signature to each ECT to validate the application. And this is a point where we seem to find the most pauses in applications because the head teacher hasn't done this part. So if you just make sure, if you're an induction tutor, that your head teacher has done this part. And then ECT Manager is set up and ready to use. So again, some of you are seeing that at the minute it's showing that your ECT hasn't been verified. If it's saying that you've done everything you can to this point and then it's just waiting for either the TRA to get in touch with us and say, yes, this is a qualified teacher, or it's waiting for some other information to kind of pull through the system, but we'll manage that from our end. So you will receive at some point these emails and then you'll be all set up.
Thanks, Sarah. Just if anyone does have any questions about that, pop it in the chat. But sometimes ECT Manager emails can go into junk. So it can go into head teacher's junk mail, or it can go into you as induction tutor's junk mail. So it might be worth just identifying that it's a safe email address. And so anything that's sent via ECT Manager, it will go into your focused inbox and not in anything other. Okay.
Oh.
Sorry, Sarah. Jumping ahead.
So the other useful documents, so obviously, as we've already mentioned, the Induction for Early Career Teachers guidance, which we took some quotes from earlier, the Early Career Framework, obviously two very important documents within your role, the Progress Review and Assessment Guidance Booklet, which I just previously mentioned, and the Teaching School Hub Induction Booklet, both of which will be in the resources section on ECT Manager.
Thank you. And lastly, just to clarify, because I know this is sometimes something schools know, or sometimes what schools don't, but the appropriate body part of induction is the part that schools pay for. So ECF is if you go down the provider-led route, is fully funded, so you don't pay for that and you are funded as a school to pay to release your ECTs and mentors, but appropriate body services across the country are chargeable, and these are our costs. So if it's something you need to inform your finance department or your school officer about, then they will be invoiced throughout the year, requesting a payment. Now, the grid just shows you there's obviously varying degrees of option. If you're with us as an example for ECF and appropriate body, for each ECT it's £135, and then it goes through. So if you're with a different provider but you're with us for AB, it's £150. And options 3 and 4, because of the increase in fidelity checking and support from the Teaching School Hub and all of the QA, then the costs are increased. But that's just a bit of an information share, really, so that it's nothing new throughout the year. Okay, I'm just going to pause for appropriate body for 1 minute. I know it's so much to take in, and just I'll let you reflect and see if you've got anything that you need to clarify or ask. It's absolutely fine. And just tell you really quickly, if you are here on behalf of the ECTs in your school, we did share last week at the webinar that there's an ECT fair coming up for every ECT in the region on the 14th of November. It's at St James's Park, and we're going to be there with other teaching school hubs, curriculum hubs, research schools. There's going to be lots of resources, lots of opportunities shared with them, lots of freebies. So it'd be lovely to see the schools who are partnered with us there, and lovely to meet you all in person. Sorry, Sarah, I know I've jumped in when it was your turn, but it just happened naturally. I do apologise. Is there anything else you need to add for that one, Sarah?
Yeah, I think just to say that it's from 2 till 5, but it's drop-in, so it's not the full session. And so if your ECT can't leave school until 3 o'clock, that's fine, because we'll be there until 5. So it's more of a drop-in session.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so before questions, and I'll answer some that are in the chat. Really the next steps are make sure the DFE registration is complete and that all of the details are correct. So we've already heard from some schools, oh, this is not this mentor anymore, and we're only on to week 3, and that happens, and that's fine. And it's okay if schools change mentors and change induction tutors if they've realised the person's not the right one, or it's not going to fit timetables or capacity, but it must be changed on the DFE Manage Early Career Teachers site. And just make sure when you log into ECT Manager, all the details that are put on there are correct, including specifically their full-time equivalent. So if they're part-time or whenever they started with you, put in there too. You may get new ECTs over the year, because we know not all teachers begin their role in September. That's also fine. We'll support you with which cohort they'll need to be in for their training, but all you need to be doing is adding ECTs, and we'll get you sorted in them beginning throughout the year. Have a look on ECT Manager, download the things that you need, and obviously share the fair with ECTs. Timetable's really, really key, so getting that right, and if you need us to help you with that, to prepare your ECTs or mentors, then we're here to help with that one. Okay. I don't mind people raising hands if they want to ask questions, but I'm just going to go to the chat, and if it's okay with those who have put it in, just answer some of them which may help. I'll just work from the bottom up. Is the ECT open to all ECTs? Yes, it is. It's open to all ECTs. That's absolutely fine if they're not registered with us. The event's being held by ourselves and Three Rivers Teaching School Hub in Newcastle and north of Tyne. But if you've got ECTs that would like to come along, then feel free to come along. AB named contact for ECTs. So in that induction booklet, if you download it, it's got the named contact for ECTs in there. So it's got the person's name and the person's contact details. And that would only be if the ECT has a concern to raise about school. So it's not if the ECT has a concern about their programme or about their appropriate body service, or they need help with induction, or they're struggling with their time, or they're not making progress. Those questions we'll help them with. It would be if they needed some support to raise a concern about school. And then we'd support them best way we can. Let me just have another look. I know Keely's supported some around signing up. Keely, do you want to come off mute? Was there any other questions in there that you weren't able to answer?
No,
Marie?
sorry, I'm just working through people are emailing asking for logins, so I'm just working through those now.
No problem. Sarah, if that document's not on resources, we'll have a look to see if it needs uploading, but it's ready to go, so it should be up there straight away. Next couple of days we'll put up there.
Zoe, I think Julie Carr had a question about her 2 new ECTs have shown up on ECT Manager, but not someone who was in the ECT cohort from January. I would imagine she needs. Oh, you've messaged.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks, Keely.
Okay.
Thank you. Victoria, that's a great question. How many observations in total from mentors weekly? So mentors shouldn't really be observing at all unless it's their role within school to do so. So as a mentor, they shouldn't be formally observing. What they can do with their mentor hat on is do drop-ins for that support against the ECF training programme. So we think it's really great practice for mentors to work with an ECT, identify an area of coming in to see it in action, and then saying, you tell me when I can pop in for 10 minutes, and then talking about it in the next meeting. So weekly, that is fine, but they shouldn't be doing any formal observations. That should be the induction tutor or the correct person in school who would usually be observing all staff. Adam, if you've got problems with the DFE registering, pop Keely an email and see if there's anything that it could be that it's the wrong email address, or if you can speak to Keely, she'll support you more specifically. Yes, Victoria, that's right. So minimum 1 observation by induction tutor per term, but some schools, their process is that the whole staff get observed every term twice. It can go in line with your whole school policy for monitoring, but as long as an induction tutor does see the ECT. Okay, is there any more questions? If anyone wants to raise their hand. I'm just going to stop the recording.